All right, so fast forward 5 months, probably, nearly 5 months, back on the cowl, finally. As you just watched previous, we had cut it up and was just mocking it on the old frame rails, trying to get an idea of how this thing was gonna look. So I've just got it back from my mate who's sandblasted it and etch primed it for me, which was awesome. Thank you very much, Chris. Basically, just put it in, it's there. I've narrowed it, it's tacked in a few bits. I need to fill this and do a bunch of work to it, but the main thing that I need to do is originally this cowl sat quite high and the whole bottom of it was rusty. There was literally nothing left of it, so I actually didn't know how big it was. So I made some measurements, I ended up cutting it off. It looked really cool in the frame, and then I tried to sit in it and my knees were like right there, so that was not ideal, and I didn't want to look like I was wearing it. I wanted to, I want to fit in it like a shoehorn. Anyway, so what I've had to do is trim the bottom, get everything perfectly square, and I've had to replicate and make a bottom for it. I've actually already done this because I wanted to know if it was going to work with using the bead roller, and definitely took a lot of trial and error. I probably should have filmed it. I'll kind of explain it as I go, but basically I've just used your standard Harbor Freight step dies and was able to play with them enough, and after multiple settings, those are a couple there's several more, I was able to get the spacing right and that to achieve kind of the bottom bend that we need. So that actually came off the bottom of this, and it just wasn't square, so I wanted to square it all off. And what we've come up with is basically a bottom that I will be able to weld onto. And then once this is done, I'll roll this edge a little bit better to that. I'll drill some holes, it'll have the felt, and then the way we're going to attach it to the frame itself is with an angle piece, 90 degrees. I think I had one somewhere here, right there, sorry, in the reach behind you. Basically, this is just an old one I had, but this is how I'm going to achieve the bottom of it. That's going to be fixed to the frame, and that'll allow me to be able to mount the cowl down, as well as it's going to give a really neat line along the whole bottom, and I'll do this along the entire subframe of the top of the frame. And what I'm going to use is these really nice blind rivets that I've been using. Sorry, my hands are filthy. And they are going to go along the whole bottom, the entire way, all the way down the frame. I may even kind of gradually bring this one up and stop it, or do kind of like a nice little, nice little curve, or try and just complement the rest of the frame with the nice rivets and the shapes and the gussets and fish plates and that. So basically what I'm going to do now is lay out this other one, get this bent. I'll run it through the bead roller a few times and I'll explain how I do that. And we will get these clamped into place and welded in. And I'll just quickly mock it up on the frame, make sure the height's right for the fall for the hood to the grill. Once I'm happy with it, then I will go make a full pass with the TIG welder. I'll run it through the hammer and dolly it, blend it, make it look like I had not cut it off before. All right, so as I just mentioned, I do need to add 130 mil to the bottom of this. Basically, this was a cutoff from the other one, so that is how much we need to bring this up so I can fit my big knees under. So what I'm gonna do is lay out this side. Unfortunately, I do not have a guillotine. It is on the list. Yeah, would love to get one. But for now, I have this trusty grinder with no guard on it, which make sure you guys put a guard on it. I'm left-handed. It's really hard with a guard on it. I've tried, it just doesn't work. I've never been able to do it for 25 years of using one. So basically, I'm just gonna draw out this line. We're gonna scrub a few areas where we need to use the bead roller and the brakes, and we'll start getting this one shaped up for the other side. So basically, I have your standard Harbor Freight Metal Man, Metal Master, you know, like your cheap dies. I have a really nice set. I'm just not using them. This seemed to be the profile I needed. And basically, I've just run several passes through, adjusted them, tried them up and down every way I needed to try and make it work. This is exactly what we are trying to achieve. It is quite rolled, and this is a little bit sharper, but honestly, it's gonna do the trick once it's welded and blended and a bit of body work, or you know, primer and paint basically. So as you can see, if I line it up, it is quite nice. So I will be able to get a really nice weld on that and blend it all to hopefully make it look like it wasn't there. So a little bit of trial and error, making sure it works, but yeah, just a tip, like cut tons of scrap pieces off, clean them, make them look good, and do multiple passes, try different angles, make sure stuff works. So usually this would be bolted down to the ground, which it was for ages, and I actually had a little table set up for it, but I needed the steel for a project, and the only steel that I needed in the thickness was the nice little table I had made for this. So it got cut up, and then this thing got pushed to the corner, and I haven't really had to use the bead roller for a while. Okay, so we're just gonna count our spins from the last one. Basically, that's half. That's one. We're gonna do multiple passes and bring it right down, but just so we get a start, we are at 2. All right, Ben's gonna be my assistant. We're gonna roll this through a couple times, and we'll see what it looks like. Straight. Mock it up. Bingo. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. So that is a step we've achieved. Obviously you can see that the side of the die kind of scored the edge. I could clean these up and make them all right, but honestly a little bit of 80 grit will be fine. Matches up really nice. So that's gonna work perfect. All right, now we need to break this. All right, one little thing too, when you are doing these little bends, you don't wanna measure the outside radius, you wanna measure the inside radius. What I mean by that is where you're gonna break that line. You don't wanna measure on the outside here. So we'll get this, this one marked up. I will mark the inside radius, and we will bend this, and hopefully she'll look okay. All right, so here we have our two pieces. We have our little break in there, our front bit and our brake on the back. Basically, that one's a little bit longer, but I'm unsure what I'm gonna do with the front of this. So what we need to do, get these fitted, clamped in, we'll tack them into place, and then we'll dry fit it onto the frame. Well, I definitely know there's many do's, many don'ts when you're welding stuff, especially TIG welding, but this has actually come out really good. I just hit it with the slapper and dolly, and yeah, it's actually really nice, quite smooth too. And it's just a really awkward panel to try and get everything like lined up, like it just moves a lot. But honestly, I'll probably cut this back in 2 pieces and then re-weld it after I'm finished these. But what I've done is I was able to actually clamp this to the table, and the table is really flat and the gap is like perfect. So I'm just gonna run it across and just do as many little tacks as I can through the clamps, and then I will flip it over and do the rest, and then a little bit of hammer and dolly work. But yeah, you can kind of, I don't even know if you can see in there, sorry for the shadow, it's probably not going to focus, but it's like, it's perfect. It's so tight, kind of what you want, and yeah, it's dead flat. So I'm going to just try and see if this will work, and then we will end up doing a full pass from one side all the way across, because we can get to the back side. So I will end up hammer and dolling this. I'll use the shrinking disc, and we will get this nice and flat, ready for some primer and some paint soon. So very excited, but honestly, this is probably all going to change anyways. Even this brake that I've put in the end here, this one's got a real big wobble through it. So what's going to happen is the panels that are going to come into this will probably meet somewhere, and so this will probably end up being cut, and then I will have to butt weld more material into it. So for now, at least it gives us a little bit of a profile to what we're trying to achieve. Well, I'm super happy with how this turned out. Looks great so far. So what I'll end up doing is I'll trim these edges off, and then we will end up making another break in a piece, and we'll double clamp the bottom of this, and we'll carry this down. And then what we'll do is we'll probably end up trimming this all the way around, just enough to be able to attach a nice piece, and we'll make a really nice firewall for this and get rid of this one because she's had the old buckshot through her, so that's all right. That's how we got that girl. Luckily, something arrived. We have some fenders that we're going to make the rear quarter panels out of. Thank you, Les. Thank you, Ben, for bringing them across from Melbourne too. That was awesome. He wrapped them up and, as you saw, just put them on the carry-on, which was great. We are going to try and get this body sorted because we are going to make the sand bent headers for this on Saturday. So I have one day to try and at least just tack the proportions of what I'm trying to achieve for the body. So on this, I'm going to show you basically trying to trim all this stuff up. We're going to play with some sheet metal. We're going to try and get a gauge of, trying to figure out what we're up to here. And I'm going to see if I can still fit in this thing with some body panels on it. One thing I've done too is I've started to actually make the whole bottom of the body itself that will fix to the frame. Basically it's just a bunch of rivets put through with some of the same sheet metal, broke 90 degrees, and once this is all fixed I will just drill through this and fix it into the frame. So just kind of adds a little bit of aesthetics, kind of makes it look nice, and we'll continue that along the whole back of the frame. So what I'm going to do now is we need to actually extend this out. I need a little bit more length before adding that quarter panel to it. So we're just going to cut up some pieces, add a few bits to this. Right, so we got the firewall cut out, and what I got to do is make an inside flange. I'll trim this back to fit this, and then once this is done and tacked in, I'll straighten everything out, and then this is just going to house a nice area to be able to put a new firewall in. And I'm probably going to do it out of aluminum, maybe engine turned, maybe polished, I'm not entirely sure. But I'll clean all this up, and at least we have an area where we can mount to, which is really good. So what I'm going to do is actually draw some lines down on the table. That's going to be the outside diameter of what we are using for the frame, and then we can add some sections to it and hopefully, get it a little bit longer.
gonna lay out the pattern for all the holes. Unfortunately, I decided to go every 30 mil, I believe it was, and realized there was a lot of holes to drill. So it'll look cool, but it's just a little bit of time. So I'll lay them out now. We'll center punch each one, and then we'll just put a pilot hole through it, and then we know where we can mock that up onto the cowl itself and pre-drill and put some Clicos in it. Alright, so this is our extension. It's loosely mocked into place. Really, I probably should have just done a whole skin all the way out to where it meets, but look, I'm kind of making progress with what I have here at the time. I'm a little bit low on sheet metal materials at the moment. I had a job that sucked all of it up basically, so I'm just kind of using with what I got. But basically, I've just clean coated it into place. If you're not familiar with them, there's the awesome little clamps, or they drill through a hole and they kind of hold two panels together. A lot of aircraft makers use them, and obviously tons of sheet metal guys have picked up on them. There's more of them here. Those ones are 3/16. I believe these ones are 1/8, and they kind of work. If I can do this with two hands. So if I can get this to focus, this pushes out, it goes through the hole, and when it comes back, it pulls together. So it pulls the two pieces together tight. So when you put it through the hole on that back side, it'll actually pull back and it holds them tight. So the reason I've done this is just to quickly mock it up on the frame, and then as well as I can go along and I can scribe this line, and I know exactly that if I scribe that line, that this panel is going to fit directly to it. So, and then there's another way of joining both panels, but when you go to weld it, is, you know, you could just have a little square piece with two holes drilled in it, and then you can do this. And obviously afterwards, after you finish welding, you are going to be left with a few holes. That's why 1/8" ones are usually probably better to use, smaller hole to fill. But I'm just using, 3/16. I had them there, so I'm just kind of going through with what I got. But basically, that is our extension, and that should allow us just to kick that back quarter back a little bit more in order to make sure that it's not, right over top of me. So On this side, I'm just showing you, you don't need to use the Clecos. You can just use simple sheet metal screws. Almost easier to use sometimes, but if you're removing the panel multiple times, the Clecos are nice, but in this case, I'm just basically mocking this up, scribing a line. I'm going to cut that cowl to weld this piece right at butt against it. These are probably even easier to use. So as you can see, this side I had originally already done the rivets and pre-drilled. So that's why I use the Clecos here, because I'll end up Clecoing each one of these holes, removing one, drilling it out and putting a rivet through, and then moving on to the next one and the next one so that there's no warpage or anything that can happen. So I just wanted to show you that panel is obviously Clecoed in, and on this side everything is using sheet metal screws, which is totally perfect as well. So it doesn't really matter. This one I will end up, I'll probably pull these out and I will have to use Clecos along the bottom because, like I said, a Cleco will be removed. I will drill the hole slightly larger and I will add a rivet, and then I will move to the next one, just so that everything stays together nice and tight as you move forward. And this, I can now scribe a line, I can cut that out, weld that piece in. I also just trimmed out the body line here because it was kind of intruding on where this wanted to sit and it didn't need to be there. I am going to leave these holes. I will just hammer and dolly around this area, but I want to leave these because I might actually use the factory windshield and shorten it right down and make a tiny little window for it, or windshield. So we'll see. But what I'm going to do is just stick it back on the frame now and just have a little bit of a play around and make sure everything's going to fit properly. But it's starting to look like something, very, very slowly. So the cowl is basically fitted on the frame, just with some clamps kind of held into place. It's square, it's where it wants to be. And I've just held up the rear quarter kind of into place roughly. So what I need to do is basically transfer all these measurements and trim cuts off that one onto this one. And then I can kind of put the two together and hopefully be able to clamp the back of it and get a better gauge of where it's going to sit.
top of the fender, and I've obviously cut this off and kind of made a gradual bend that will kind of continue around to the other side that would kind of just go behind my back. How I did that was I just put a bunch of tape down and then cut it out, and then I removed the tape. I had a scribe line and then I cut that out. And you can transfer this onto the other side. So as long as you have enough tape, and this will, like, you know, form the way that it curves because of the way that we laid the tape down. So I've peeled this off carefully, and now I can transfer this onto the other side. And I have my lines that I've marked on the back side with the Sharpie to know where my edge of my fender is. So now I can hold that against it, and now I have the exact template from that side to this side. And what I'm actually going to do, because I've now extended the cowl, I've lengthened the quarter panel, so I'm going to pull this forward, and I'm actually going to utilize the gas cap. Right, so I've shortened it up a little bit. Originally it passed through here on the original template that I used with the tape that's over there on the wall. But what I'm going to do is actually cut and kind of try and make a new form, and what I'll do for the other one is just weld the piece back in. But what that's going to allow is I'll be able to form this right around and kind of go right around my shoulders with enough room to put a bit of padding, and I'll kind of upholster that edge. So I'll cut it probably short, and then if I need to, I'll start trimming away rather than what I did on the other one and just got too excited. So let's trim this and we'll mock up both. Okay, so I just took this panel off and broke and made a 90 degrees on this. This actually does come down and kind of fits quite nice, but what I'll end up doing is probably using like a 1/2 inch round bar, like round stock solid, and I'll graft it into this and actually trim this back, and that'll be my wire edge that'll go around, so I have something that I can fix to along the edge, and that, you know, I don't really want any more space. Like even this width along the whole back would be, you know, obviously kind of intruding into where I'm sitting. So a nice round bar off that, I'll kind of blend this into it, and then that'll kind of travel right around and back to the other side. So you know, just trying to kind of going by the seat of my pants on this one, and making it try and just see if it's going to work. So I'll start getting the other quarter panel together, and we're just going to mock everything up loosely, try and just, like, you know, get some Tech screws in there and just hold everything together, and then I can try and maybe get the laser on and try and draw a line so I know where to cut everything. But we're making progress. Alright, so as you can see, I really like the way this sweep comes up, and basically my head's going to be kind of somewhere here, and I'll probably make a little thing for it. But I wanted to keep the gas cap because I am going to use it, which is cool, but on this one I jumped the gun a little bit and I trimmed too much. So I'm just going to quickly tack this into place, and then I'll make a template off the other one, and this actually gets trimmed back here and it'll kind of come up like that. So I just need to put this material back in. So when you do cutaways, don't damage them, just put them down gently, because you may have to do what I do and re-weld them back in.
All right, so as you just saw, I was able to put this in behind and actually screw through where all the factory holes are that used to hold the molding on. I've actually measured these out exactly on the other one, and every one of them is nearly spot on. So I should be able to transfer this now onto that side utilizing the hole, and I'll know exactly where to drill this. So I'll just leave this here. We'll take off this fender and put the other one on. Essentially, I have now exact holes in where this goes, and then this now is the new setup. So before, when I was telling you, I got a little bit carried away. Even with the grinder, I kind of just was getting a bit too excited, so I'll have to fill that, which is a little bit annoying, but that's okay. So now we have our template here. Basically, there's our line. I can draw this out now and cut this, and we have an exact matching set, and then we can put these on the car. So I'll just cut this out now. And that is a pigeon pair. So they are exactly the same and have the same contour. So you can see how much I got a bit carried away, but that's all right. So basically now this piece will get fixed in like so. And then there's the seat. So my head will be kind of, you know, right in that area, and that'll just pick up and go right around. So it should look really good. So let's mock it up. All right, so we basically have them loosely assembled. You can kind of see what we're going for here. Basically, it looks like a bathtub. Maybe we'll call it the bathtub special instead of the shoehorn special. But this is kind of what I'm trying to achieve. So I just need to obviously take probably about 50 mil or 2 inches out both sides and try and bring them together, and then I can tack down the back. But basically this is gonna kind of work in the regards of what we're trying to achieve. We still have lots of room back here for the fuel tank, battery, and then even back here I might even leave this opening and make a little push bar style setup or something like that, which could be really cool. Actually, bear with me, we'll just walk over here. Up here I got an old one off of a says B. Yeah, this was an old one that I had made. Might be too small, but this is what I'm thinking. You know, something like that, having a little push bar kind of sticking out, which would be really neat. So what I'm going to do is just trim both sides identical, and then I'll put them together.
so I've kind of achieved what I'm trying to do as far as the layout, and it has been like a ton of grinding and cutting and trimming that I haven't really put on the camera because I was kind of in the zone trying to figure out what to do. And that original kind of gradual setup that I had to trim it up, I eliminated that. I ended up going a lot steeper, trying to match the front of the cowl where it kind of cuts in right here. I've pushed this body forward and back so many different times. I had it back a little bit more, which allowed me a little bit more room, but then it looked really goofy. And I've moved it really far forward where I liked it, where it was real stumpy, but then I didn't fit. So I found the happy medium. I've sat in there. My shoulders fit really nice. And I think it should do, you know, like kind of what we're trying to achieve. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna make a wire buck that you guys have seen before that I've done for the front of the grill. And what I need to do basically is try and make this whole back bit that is all obviously open. And I've like literally utilized a little bit of sheet metal with some sheet metal screws just to kind of hold everything where I wanted it and keep it square. So what I'm gonna try and achieve is something along these lines. I may even do kind of like a little bubble similar to what I did on the front of the grill, just to complement, you know, kind of front to back, keep everything slightly uniform. And then we will try and get into the body line. I'm not entirely sure what I'm gonna do with this yet. If I keep it, I wanna run it into the cowl. If I eliminate it, then it's just gonna be, you know, real kind of plain Jane kind of side quarters. So I do wanna add some body lines to it just to, you know, make it look like this was something that someone had designed and brought out and, you know, was a really neat piece. So I'm gonna get into this now. I'm gonna throw you on time lapse, and basically I'm just gonna sit here, try and figure out what I like. I'll tack it on to this, and then I'll try and cut it all off, and I'll have our little wire buck that then we can paper template and transfer it to steel. So we're getting into it. progress.
I've just made up a little wire buck for right here, and this basically follows the contour directly across. As you saw prior, Ben and I made a big hoop and put it on there, and unfortunately it just didn't look right. So I think what I'll end up doing is this is just going to be the whole body. It'll be smooth, direct, like right across, unless I do want to just make like a real subtle, you know, tip this edge and just make it somewhat subtle, similar to the front grill, which I actually kind of want to try and do. And then as well back here, I have this nice round bit, and then hopefully I can just kind of follow a line and then bring that down. With the bottom, I will see kind of where we end up. Exactly, like I wouldn't mind trying to pull that in a little bit as well, and I do need to finish off the end of these the frame tails, so I will probably just kind of scallop them out or kind of bring them down and narrow them and kind of just have them to a taper. You know, I'm just kind of going with all these ideas just straight off the moment, you know, and kind of look at different things and a few reference photos and stuff like that. But yeah, it is starting to kind of look like something. It's really hard to see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sand all this off. I was going to get them blasted, but I'll probably just end up sanding them myself. There's barely any paint on them. They're in really good shape. So I want to do that and then just get them to steel, and then I might just do a real light coat of primer on there, or, you know, just to try and make it look all the same, or just even steel generally, like, would make a huge difference if it was just nice brush steel, and I'll just sand it with 80 grit. Also, what I'm going to do, which is really cool, this is the old filler door. I'm going to utilize it, and inside I'm going to put the fuel tank upright like this. It fits perfect in the back, and I'm gonna have a little spout. There's my vent, there's my fuel pickup. It's stainless, it's perfectly clean inside, so it'll do a really good job. And what I'll do is I'll run a bit of copper off the top for my breather into like a fuel filter, so that when it is breathing or venting, it's going to be pulling clean air, filtered air, and not that really shit dust that, you know, is going to be up there. Then I have this old school motorcycle cap. I'm just going to try and hold the camera and show you. Oops, sorry. Cap. And what that's going to do, sorry, that was horrible to show you example wise, but what I'm going to do is have it right there. So I'll just make a little door for it, or a little holder, and that's basically going to sit there, and it's going to go straight to the fuel tank, and the fuel tank is going to sit upright right in there. And then hopefully there'll be enough room where I can maybe put a battery somewhere back here if I can. Obviously, as you guys know, and I've said it several times, space is very limited in this, so I want to make sure, you know, I'm kind of planting stuff where I can. Yeah, maybe even if I have the radiator up here, I could stick the battery in the front. Nah, I don't know. That's maybe. We'll see. I do realize we are under an extreme time crunch, so I need to kind of get my ass in gear and stop being too picky. I think I've looked at this, like I said, so many different times and changed it, but I'll also, you know, I really want to make a really nice piece. I don't want to just kind of, yeah, make something just because. I want to be super happy with it, and I want this to be a piece of rolling art that is also functional, that also going to absolutely flog up there and put completely sideways. We'll see. I'm babbling on. All right, it's early. I think it's about 4:45 in the morning. Back on. I got the whole day to work on this, and I want to try and achieve so much. I've kind of, yesterday, I just needed to leave and come back with a fresh mind. I just kept looking at it and altering too much stuff and moving it on. It's just, I don't know, I'm typically really picky, so I'm my worst critic sometimes. What I'm gonna try and achieve, I've spoke to a few of the boys, Carl, Travis, thank you very much for your input. What I'm gonna try and achieve is making this all in one panel. Unfortunately, I'm gonna take out a little bit of this nice original 19, I don't know, I think it's a 26 gram, maybe? I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So what I wanna do is I'm gonna cut one whole piece of steel the whole way across here. I'm gonna try and achieve to bring this bead roll or this bossing, or it's not even a bossing, boss. Went to a park in Botswana. Yeah, so what I'm gonna try and achieve, where this body line comes across and fades out, I wanna do the same somewhere in this area. And I wanna bring some sort of body line into here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut and trim this across, up, and down. And we're gonna make this all out of one piece. So it kind of eliminates how much welding, because I have so much going on, I need to simplify it. So it's a little bit more work, but it should be less work in the long run as far as distortion and, you know, trying to get those panels flat again after welding it, especially on a corner joint. We're gonna do some measurement with the cardboard template, and I'm gonna do some precise measurements, get this back, hold it up there, make sure everything works. We're gonna cut it out of a piece of steel and we're gonna put it on there. And then I'm gonna go get some primer and I'm gonna prime these over the rust, because I'm gonna have to sand it anyways, but I just wanna see it. It's really hidden, if you know what I mean. It's hard to see that when you see this. So I wanna paint that gray so you can see this, and then we'll actually start to see what it's gonna look like. So here's the cardboard template that I've made. It goes along, fits the chassis rail, comes up, sits just underneath this bead line, or the body line, sorry. And that body line is gonna go straight through and then fade out somewhere here. So basically I'm gonna transfer this now to a piece of steel, scribe really tight, cut that out, and then essentially I'm gonna put that against it, similar to what I've done there without the shadow, sorry, and I will scribe a line along the cowl where I end up deciding to do it, which is basically where it is. And then back here I'll decide whether or not to weld, like to cut the fender out like that, or utilize this curved piece, which I probably will do, because it will be nice to, you know, the distortion over a curved piece versus a straight 90 degree is probably better. So I will end up cutting it back kind of similar like that, and then I will have to give it a little bit of shape. But essentially that's kind of what we're after. And I'd way rather do it out of one piece where I have just one weld across here and then a weld there rather than, you know, what I had before. So a little step back, but maybe several steps forward in, you know, the future steps, if that makes sense. So let's remove this. We'll get a sheet of steel up onto the table, lay the cardboard down on it, and we'll get an accurate measurement and start to cut it out. So from template on the cardboard, we have now transferred that onto a piece of steel. So we are going to see what this looks like before we give it a bit of shape and lay out all of our lines for the bead roll. So let's see if it fits. Basically what we're trying to achieve, something like this. So now I can basically run this body line out here. I probably should have left more meat on that before doing it, so that might be a screw up, but we'll try it on this panel before we do the other one. So if it does cause an issue, I know for the second one. It is essentially gonna work. And I think once we do add this bead rolled line, and what I actually might do, because I kind of want to keep these posts just in case, so I think I might actually bring this and step it down and then have it end kind of out here, and that would, you know, help me out because then I have a bit of material there. But I think it'd look really cool if it kind of just sort of like the kick up of the frame and then just went bloop. All right, so the body line is going to come up, down, and stop. Something, I don't know, maybe it'll look shit, maybe it'll look cool. It's going to be done, and I'm not hoping to replace this panel. All right, so we got the line laid out. I did, sorry the camera just died, but I did just pre-stretch that with the high crown on the English wheel and just did multiple passes just to try and pre-stretch it a little bit. I've played with a few sample pieces. I got the crappy bead roller sitting here. Well, crappy, but still works. I'm sure a lot of you guys got this. I did reinforce it years and years ago, and it still works. Has a bit of flex, but it does the job. I'm very looking forward to the new motorized one with the table to show up. You know, especially me in the workshop right now all by myself. No one else is here. It's empty as well. What I did, hopefully you can see this, but if I line that up, it is nearly spot on, like really, really nice. So it took me a couple tries, but now I've got it, so that's good. So now I can kind of continue that straight into the cowl. Pretty good at hitting record, and it's not actually recording. Just had it set up on the bead roller, doing a time lapse of that bead, and yeah, didn't work unfortunately. But I'll show you the next side, which is cool. But basically, I don't know. I'm kind of digging it. It's neat. There's a lot of flat in this and plain, but it's going to be hidden by some sign writing, and obviously the headers of this are going to be a prominent piece of this project. So, you know, with the radical swoop that they're going to have and kind of the kick up all the way to the back, they are going to kind of block that area. And on the other side, the cowl steer, that'll kind of break it up a little bit. So, you know, if I need to add something, but simplicity is usually a little bit better, you know, with all those rivets along the whole bottom, that's going to add, you know, a fair bit of design aspect to it. But yeah, it's kind of neat. It really lines up. So basically, obviously I need to try and get that set in, but this does like follow the line really well. Don't know if you can quite see it, but it does. That's probably a really bad angle to show you. But anyways, it does come down and fall, and then I did kind of stop it. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do there yet, but I may end up just leaving it, and you know, it just might look cool otherwise if I have to, but I'm going to just trim up a little, you know, a couple bits and pieces here, try and get this set up where we're going to have it, and then I will end up just putting this in the wheel and just getting a little bit of contour in there to match up to the rear quarter panels. So let's make some marks, we'll get it trimmed up. Passes with the English wheel just to give it a little bit of contour. Yeah, basically it's got a relatively nice shape that kind of is shallower at the front and then comes a bit more towards the back. The English wheel is kind of playing up a bit. I can't get it set perfect, so it's leaving quite a few marks, but that's okay. For what we need it for, it's done the job. So I'm gonna scribe out a wheel well cut. It's starting to look like something. It's pretty good. Yeah, just a little bit of, there's like kind of a low spot right here. I think it's due to the bead roll that I did put in. I did pre-stretch it, but I think it's just pulled it in a little bit. But look, I'm no expert on the English wheel at all. Like I have experience, but I don't have a lot. So I just kind of learn and as I go, and if it feels right, it feels right. If it doesn't, I usually go too far. But I kind of lucked out. Hopefully the other side I do the same, but I kind of counted how many I was putting through each time, writing it down. So hopefully on the following side, I can relatively get that close within, you know, a bit. All right, so as you can see, it gets a nice little shine, even though the wheels aren't even polished on the English wheel over there. It looks really cool. I'm digging it. I really like how this line kind of just follows through and then just does like a little dip down right underneath where the stanchion will go if I end up putting one on. I might just cut it and shorten one and just see what it looks like. May look really cool, may not. But basically that's in. I'm just going to clean all this side of this up now, and get everything cleaned up, and then we will do some trim and fit. So let's hope it fits and looks really well. And I'm gonna actually just add a couple little pieces, some little sheet metal pieces with a few holes drilled in it, and that'll just help to align everything before we end up cutting it all out. Right, so you can see just behind, when that's down, there's a really nice scribe line. You can see it really well. It's nice and clean, super tight. So we'll just get as close to that as possible, and we'll really make sure that we, do a really good job of trying to remove all that material and do it really cleanly, trying to keep on that line. All right. Nice tight gaps. Very good. We're gonna start tacking this in. Let's go. Let's bloody go. Long time coming. all that cut off for that bit. But look at it. Do you see what I see? Once I finish doing this, that'll come to a nice little point. I'll carry that all the way down to the bottom. That is literally starting to look like something. And as you can see, went along, got it all. It's nice and really tight as well. I can kind of get that a little bit closer. So they'll be really easy to weld that. There definitely will be some distortion, but you know, we'll be able to planish a lot of that out and hammer and dolly it. But really like the way that body line is kind of turned out. I haven't quite decided what I'm gonna do right on the end there. I might even just leave it, and once it's painted it might look all right. But yeah, so I kind of, as I explained before, there's the body line and then the kick up of the frame, and then once those, you know, 3 extractors kind of shoot out the back, it should look really cool. So yeah, wrap it up. That's it on this episode. That was a huge day. Massive couple of days, weeks actually, but we got a lot done. I'm super happy with the way that this is turning out. I'm so happy that I just, you know, kind of took a step back in order to take a few steps forward, just making that whole panel and not dealing with all the little bits and pieces. I'm really happy with the way that that body line has come out. Yeah, super stoked. I can see what it's kind of looks like a bathtub. Might be the bathtub special, I don't know. Anyways, I hope you guys really enjoyed that video. Also, a massive shout out to Travis at Road Alliance Customs, or RAC Garage on YouTube. Absolute legend. I had a really cool chat with him this morning on FaceTime, and he gave me a few tips actually. Yeah, it was just really cool and just a genuine dude. So I was really excited about that. We're gonna catch you guys next week. I'm gonna finish the other side. Gonna finish welding this. Lots of planishing, lots of hammering, lots of shrinking. Hopefully it's gonna look cool. We're making headway. The lines are getting crossed through that endless list. It's like a scroll that keeps going, but I'm slowly rolling it up, crossing those things off, getting done. So this thing will be finished. 58 days today until race day. So technically I'm gonna say like 45 days, but until we have to be on that track racing, I have 58 days to get this thing done. Anyways, catch you on the next one. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Hit that notifications button. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for all the positive feedback. You guys are all such legends, and yeah, this is super fun to do. So see you on the next